Have you ever wondered how the world would look today if the Crusades had never happened? A compelling question, isn't it? The Crusades, a series of religious and political wars, were a defining chapter in our history, spanning from the 11th to the 15th centuries. Imagine an intricate tapestry where each thread represents a unique event. The Crusades in this grand tapestry of history form a vibrant and complex pattern, impossible to overlook. They were not just about religion or power, they were also about cultures clashing and blending, about the human spirit tested to its limits, about the shaping of the world as we know it today. In this vast canvas of conflict and change, several battles stand out, each a turning point in its own right. They forged nations, altered cultures, and left an indelible mark on the course of history. These battles were pivotal points in history, shaping nations and cultures. Let's dive into the top 5 battles of the Crusades. The First Crusade culminated in the dramatic siege of Jerusalem in 1099. This monumental event in history was a clash of faiths, cultures, and ambitions, with a city steeped in religious significance at its epicenter. The key players in this siege were the crusading forces of Western Europe and the Fatimid defenders of Jerusalem. The Crusaders, driven by religious fervor and an ambition for wealth and power, were led by the likes of Godfrey of Bouillon, Raymond of Toulouse, and Robert of Normandy. On the other side, the Fatimid garrison, despite being outnumbered, was determined to defend Jerusalem, a city that was sacred to them as well. The Crusaders used a two-pronged strategy. They surrounded the city, cutting it off from any potential reinforcements or supplies. Simultaneously, they constructed siege towers to breach the city walls. Despite facing severe hardships, including scarcity of food and water, the Crusaders' determination remained unbroken. After a grueling siege of more than a month, the city fell to the Crusaders on July 15, 1099. The outcome was devastating for the city's inhabitants. The Crusaders, in their zeal, perpetrated a massacre, killing many of the city's Muslim and Jewish residents. This brutal episode left an indelible mark on the annals of history. The siege of Jerusalem was a major victory for the Crusaders and marked the pinnacle of the First Crusade. It resulted in the establishment of the Kingdom of Jerusalem, a Crusader state that lasted for nearly 2 centuries. However, it also ignited a cycle of conflict and retribution that would continue for many years. Moreover, the siege had significant historical implications. It intensified the animosity between Christians and Muslims, a rift that has echoes even today. It also highlighted the power of religion as a mobilizing force, capable of driving people to extraordinary lengths. The siege of Jerusalem set a precedent for the Crusades, marking the beginning of a tumultuous era. This battle, with all its drama, brutality, and significance, remains a pivotal chapter in the tale of the Crusades, and indeed in the broader tapestry of human history. Hot on the heels of the siege of Jerusalem came the Battle of Ascalon. It was August 1099, and the Crusaders, under the leadership of Godfrey of Bouillon, had just captured Jerusalem. But they weren't done yet. They moved quickly south to Ascalon, a coastal city held by the Fatimid Caliphate. This was a battle marked by strategic brilliance and unbridled courage. The key figures apart from Godfrey were his brother, Baldwin of Boulogne, and Robert of Normandy. These men, along with their determined army, were about to face off against the formidable Fatimid forces, led by the seasoned commander, Al-Afdal Shahanshah. The stakes were high, and the tension palpable. The Crusaders' strategy was a masterstroke. They used a deceptive approach, marching in a seemingly disorganized manner to give the illusion of vulnerability. This lured the Fatimid forces into launching an attack, thinking they had the upper hand. But the Crusaders were prepared. They quickly formed into a formidable defensive line, catching the Fatimid forces off guard. The battle was fierce and brutal, but the Crusaders held their ground. Their superior organization and tactics allowed them to withstand the Fatimid onslaught and launch a counterattack. In the end, the Fatimid forces were routed, and the Crusaders emerged victorious. This victory was more than just a military triumph. It was a psychological one. It solidified the Crusaders' control over Jerusalem and the surrounding regions, setting the stage for the establishment of the Kingdom of Jerusalem, a Crusader state that would exist for nearly 200 years. It also marked the end of the First Crusade, a momentous event that shaped the course of history in the Middle East and beyond. The Battle of Ascalon was a testament to the Crusaders' tenacity and strategic acumen. It underscored the pivotal role of military tactics and leadership in determining the outcome of conflicts. But perhaps more importantly, it was a poignant reminder of the human cost of such battles, a cost that is often overshadowed by the grandeur of victory. With the Battle of Ascalon, the First Crusade came to a victorious end for the Crusaders. But the story of the Crusades was far from over. More battles were to come, each with its own tales of courage, strategy, victory, and defeat. The Battle of Hattin, a crucial conflict of the Second Crusade, marked a turning point. This battle, fought on July 4, 1187, was a clash of strategies, faiths, and cultures that would alter the course of the Crusades and history itself. On one side, we had the Crusader kingdom of Jerusalem, led by the ill-fated King Guy of Lusignan. Guy was a man more known for his political maneuvering than his military prowess. On the other side, we had the Muslim forces commanded by the legendary Sultan Saladin. Saladin was not just a skilled warrior but also a tactician of the highest order. The Crusader army, confident in their heavy cavalry and the reputed invincibility of the Knights Templar and Hospitaller, marched towards Tiberias. Saladin, however, had a plan. He understood the terrain and the Crusaders' reliance on water. He set fires to the dry grass, creating a smokescreen and increasing the Crusaders' thirst. Then he strategically positioned his troops around the water sources, cutting off the Crusaders' access. The Crusaders found themselves surrounded, thirsty, and exhausted under the scorching sun. The Muslim forces, meanwhile, were fresh, hydrated, and ready. When the battle began, the Crusaders, weakened by thirst and heat, were no match for Saladin's men. By the end of the day, the Crusader army was decimated, and King Guy was captured. The Battle of Hattin was not just a military victory for Saladin, it was a strategic triumph that showcased his understanding of warfare. The loss at Hattin had far-reaching consequences for the Crusaders. Jerusalem, bereft of its defenders, fell to Saladin's forces later that year, marking the end of a near century of Christian rule. Historically, Hattin is significant as it marked the beginning of the end of Christian dominance in the Holy Land. It showcased the tactical brilliance of Saladin and exposed the strategic shortcomings of the Crusaders. The Battle of Hattin was a devastating loss for the Crusaders, setting the stage for a new era of the Crusades. A new era where the balance of power would shift, and the Crusaders would find themselves on the back foot, struggling to regain the lost ground. The Siege of Acre, a monumental clash during the Third Crusade, was a fight for control. This wasn't your average scuffle, it was a 2-year-long test of endurance, strategy, and will, taking place from 1189 to 1191. The main players in this grand chess game: on one side we had the Muslim forces led by the formidable Saladin, Sultan of Egypt and Syria. On the other side we had the Crusaders, a mixed bag of knights and soldiers from across Europe, led by King Richard the Lionheart of England and King Philip II of France. The city of Acre, situated on the coast of present-day Israel, was a strategic gem. It was a gateway to the Holy Land, a prize both sides were desperate to claim. The Crusaders, having lost Jerusalem to Saladin a few years prior, saw the city as a stepping stone to reclaim lost ground. The battle tactics employed were as varied as they were brutal. The Crusaders, with their superior naval strength, blockaded the city from the sea, cutting off supplies and reinforcements. On land, they constructed siege towers and catapults, battering the city walls day and night. Saladin, on the other hand, used his cavalry effectively to keep the Crusaders on their toes, launching frequent attacks on their camps. But the tide of the battle changed when the Crusaders managed to breach the city walls. After 2 grueling years, the city fell to the Crusaders in July 1191. The Siege of Acre was a turning point in the Third Crusade. It marked the first major victory for the Crusaders and boosted their morale. It also marked a shift in power dynamics, with Richard the Lionheart emerging as the leading figure of the crusade. But this victory was not just about gaining a city, it was about sending a message that the Crusaders were not to be underestimated, and they were here to stay. The reverberations of this siege were felt throughout the remaining years of the Crusades. The Siege of Acre was a significant victory for the Crusaders, but the Crusades were far from over. The Battle of Mansoura, a pivotal conflict of the Seventh Crusade, marked a turning point in the Crusades. In the heart of the Nile Delta, Mansoura was a fortress city, a stronghold for the Ayyubid Sultanate under the command of Emir Fakhr ad-Din. The French king, Louis IX, led the Crusaders with a strategy that hinged on the element of surprise. However, the Crusaders found themselves outmatched and outmaneuvered. The Ayyubids, well-prepared and versed in desert warfare, executed a series of tactical strikes that left the Crusaders reeling. The Battle of Mansoura resulted in a crushing defeat for the Crusaders, with King Louis IX himself captured. This battle had profound implications for the Seventh Crusade. The loss marked a decline in the Crusaders' momentum and morale, casting a long shadow over their future campaigns. The Battle of Mansoura was a harsh defeat for the Crusaders, signifying the beginning of the end.